Okay, good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for joining as we continue our journey through Sefer Likutei with Torah and Beis, B'siyata D'Shmaya. This morning's shir is kindly sponsored by Reb Klein, Nishma, his parents Rivka, Bryndel, Simcha, and Ya'akov and Yeshעיהו, as well as by Regina Devora, I guess that's the way you pronounce that name, Bat Etlana, in honor of her Hebrew birthday, which was yesterday, 13 Tammuz, and dedicated to, that's very kind, Reb Klein's mission of illuminating our path home to our essential selves and back to Hashem. May all the neshamos who seek the wisdom find it. Very, very beautiful and kind. Thank you very much. And a very happy birthday and a beautiful year up ahead, full of good tidings and good news only. So here we jump in, B'siyata D'Shmaya, to Ois Yud, where 2 days ago, we were learning about the concept of Naaseh and Nishma, because we spoke about the importance of getting to a place of Azus to Kedusha, how to get to Azus, how to get to holy confidence, and how to find the ability within, right, to push past whatever structure we're stuck in that's not serving us, and to go and search for true tzaddikim, to go to search for true rabbis, true leaders, to whom we can be the basar to their etzem, right? And that their wisdom can animate us just like the neshama animates the body. Their message can illuminate us, can guide us, can fill us with meaning and with clarity and with wisdom that all of us are searching for. So how does a person come to that Azus to Kedusha? And in our test, we learned that Azus to Kedusha is through Simcha. A person needs to discover joy, and through discovering joy, they're able to find their Azus. Just remembering somebody sent me a message 2 days ago when we gave the shir, and he took a picture of a Reb Zelig Pliskin book that he reads every single day, and Shuli just reads a page of it, and when he turned to the page that he was up to, which is chapter 19, it says, it's easier to feel self-confident when you are in a positive state of mind. It was literally on the day that we learned that V'level Azus to Kedusha ayidei Simcha. So that's pretty amazing. Everything exactly in its right time. But b'chinas ki chedvas Hashem hi mu'uschem, we learned that it's the chedvas Hashem that gives a person strength, that gives a person oz. And how does a person get that? What's the aspect of Simcha? Is Naaseh and Nishma. And the Rebbe had told us that Naaseh and Nishma is the collectivity of the Torah, Nigleh, and Nistar. Naaseh is going to be the action-oriented, revealed aspect of Nigleh. Nistar is going to be the Nishma. It's that which is heard. It's beyond, above, and beyond. So let's clarify. What is Nigleh? What is Nistar? So the Rebbe told us Nigleh is the actual mitzvahs of the Torah. Nistar is the other words of the Torah that we can't ascertain clearly what it is, right? What are they coming to tell us? What's the point? What's the actionable takeaway, the call to action? And the Rebbe says, we don't know. But there certainly is. There's always an avodah. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe. Every letter, every word in the Torah is so packed with meaning, but it's nistar, it's hidden from us. And the Rebbe says that's the aspect of prayer. Tefillah is nistar. Right? Tefillah is relating to that realm that's hidden. It's not manifest yet. That's called, in one of the earlier Torahs, Bria B'Koyach, not Bria B'Poyal. Bria B'Poyal is the Torah. Bria B'Koyach is Tefillah. Right? It's where things have not yet manifested. That's the aspect the Rebbe said over there, if you remember, of Gan and Eden. Right? Nahar Yotzei Eden Lahashkas is a Gan. The Rebbe said Gan is Torah. Eden is Tefillah. Right? That unmanifested realm beyond. Okay. Naaseh and Nishma. So let's jump back into Yud. Says the Rebbe Schus Yagalin v'yesh b'chol darga v'darga v'chem b'chol olam v'olam v'chinas Naaseh v'Nishma. On every single madrega, wherever a person is, there's always, in relative terms to that person, a Naaseh and a Nishma. We said that this is a hemshech of what we learned in Torah Chof Aleph about Makif and Pnim. There's always going to be a relative Naaseh, which is the Torah that we've managed to integrate. We can actionalize it. right? It's actionable. And then there's the Nishma, that which is the Bechina of Tefillah, Bittul to Ein Sof, that aspect of humility, of humbly knowing that there's something that's makif to where I currently am. And one of the Yidden very accurately and correctly pointed out on the discussion group, which is a very beautiful place where Yidden hang out and share their thoughts and their chidushim and questions. So one of the Yidden pointed out this is very similar to what we learned in Torah Vav, right? Of the Bechina, if you remember, of Kfoid Olam Haba is the aspect of it never stopping, Yelchu Michael El Chayil, where a person is constantly moving from level to level. We called it over there tshuva, and then tshuva al tshuvasai, to do tshuva on that tshuva, and then a person gets to a higher level, tshuva on that tshuva. It's the same model of moving up endlessly. I saw a very beautiful Malbim. I know we don't usually go off the page and into different sources, but I just had to share this with you. I shared it on one of the groups, a very, very beautiful Malbim the other day, where the Heilige Malbim is commenting on the Pasuk, Yismach Leiv Mevakshe Hashem. And it's an interesting Pasuk, because what does that mean to be Mevakesh Hashem? Right? Learn. Ha'if kalt sameh l'chulamayim. Right? The Pasuk already tells us, whoever's thirsty, go to the Torah. We know where to find Hashem. Go to a holy place, go to a holy person, go to a holy text. What is the meaning of Yismach? What does it mean to be mevakesh? Right? What is Yismach Leiv Mevakshe Hashem? What is that? And so I was looking through the Mefarshim over there and listened to this amazing Malbim. It's just a short paragraph. I'll just read and translate. He says, Shekol mevakesh davar lo yismach ba'oid shelo matzas hamavukash. He says, usually whoever is searching for something will only be happy when they find the muvukash. Either because there's a doubt and they're unclear whether they'll actually find what they're looking for, or because if they've not gotten to the objective, they're not there yet, right? And so there's no reason to be happy. However, leiv mevakshe Hashem yismach. The heart that seeks Hashem is already besimcha. Either because whoever seeks automatically finds. So automatically whoever seeks Hashem will find Hashem. Because he does appear to those that seek him. Like the Kutzker, where is God? Wherever you let him in. If you let him in, you'll find him. Either that's why. Or im mitzad shahabakasha ba'atzma hi hatachlis. Because the seeking is itself the goal. That's the goal of spiritual striving. Ki Hashem lo yusag la'ilam. Because Hashem is infinite. He'll never be completely grasped. Rak yivukash tamid v'zoysi hatachlis. He will only constantly be searched for, and that in and of itself is the tachlis. V'zeh this is what it's written elsewhere. Dirshu Hashem v'uzai. Right? Bakshu panav tamid. Dirshu Hashem v'uzai. She'ikr hi adrisha. It says seek for Hashem. Don't find Hashem. Seek, because the dirshu of Hashem is the ultimate, right? She'ikri adrisha lo yametzia. The essence is the searching, not the finding. Because there's nobody who can grasp his essence. The biggest tzaddik, biggest gadol hadar, is still on the spectrum forever and ever and ever. To constantly seek Hashem. Is to search and to seek him. And it's an Indian that has no saif, right? In the context of what we're learning, Torah Chav Aleph, Torah Chav Beis, constantly from Pnim to higher makif. That makif is integrated, a new makif, right? From Naaseh to Nishma. That Nishma becomes a Naaseh, next Nishma. Onward and onward and onward. You're seeking something that cannot be definitively found, because you'll never reach it. It goes on forever and ever. And so you're constantly searching, true, but you're also constantly finding. These are the two aspects of this truth of searching for something that's bilti bal tachlis. In kain ha'asago gam kain bilti bal tachlis, v'im kain tamid tevakshu panav. You will constantly seek Hashem. Ki kol shetasigu mimenu tasigu shalei yisagtem. The more that you understand, the more you'll know that you didn't begin. V'shetzarach drisha yoser kamei shekasov yelchu mechayil el chayil. Like we said, that's what it means to go from strength to strength. Interestingly, the Lubavitcher Rebbe used to bless everybody constantly with that bracha, especially in English. He would say, you should go from strength to strength. He would constantly bless people to go from strength to strength. That's the essence of the derech of the Baal Shem Tov, is to know that you're never there. That's like the first thing. The first thing that distinguishes between an Oived and a person who's sort of just hanging out is this Nakuda, where the Oived constantly has in his mind or in her mind, there's got to be more. There's more out there. Whatever I've gotten to is not enough, not just in quantity, but more importantly in quality. There's a deeper way for me to daven. There's a deeper way for me to experience Shabbos. There's a deeper thing that these tefillin can mean to me. There's a deeper experience of tefillah, etc., etc. That is the derech of the Baal Shem Tov, which is the derech of David HaMelech, which is tefillah la'ani kiyatov, who constantly feels like an ani ba'pesach, like he's just beginning. Pischu li shari tzedek, avavam aideka, like the Naim LeMelech says, zeh hashar la'Hashem tzadikim yavayu vay. Right? Meaning, what is the gate to God? Pischu li shari tzedek. To stand, constantly feel like you're always just outside the gates. Hashem, please open the gates. Zeh hashar la'Hashem. When you're a person who embodies that energy, and like David HaMelech is constantly asking for the gate to be open, then Mashiach will, then this is the, yes, Mashiach will come also for you, and it's a messianic energy. This is the gate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The tzaddikim also comment on the Pasuk, Vayera elav Hashem v'hu yoshiv pesach ha'oil be'elanim, right? Be'elanim mamre, right? By Avram Avinu, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Avram Avinu when? I think this is also the name of the Melech. When V'hu Yoshev Pesach Ha'ayil. When a Jew understands that he's always only ever Pesach Ha'ayil, it's just at the outset, it's never in, it's just beginning. Vayirei Hashem. This is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to a person. Okay, so this is the same Nakuda. V'yesh b'chol darga v'darga v'chem b'chol oilam v'oilam b'chinas Naaseh v'nishma. Ki kol echad v'hi madrigasai yesh le'b'chinas Naaseh. Every single yid lefi madrigasai yesh le b'chinas Naaseh. There's an aspect of Naaseh, b'chinas Torah, which is an aspect of the Torah Kedosha, and Nigleh, that which is revealed to that person, what they know, the b'china of Pnim. And there's also b'chinas Nishma, she b'chinas Nistaris, b'chinas Tefillah, that which is hidden, that which he needs to channel in the aspect of prayer. When a person rises to the next level up and they leave the realm of Pnim and they start to access the next makif, bit of a complicated sentence, right? Because the first word Naaseh is not part of it. Naaseh, meaning the Nishma becomes Naaseh meha Nishma shaloi b'chinas Naaseh. It becomes Naaseh. V'azai yesh le b'chinas Nishma acheres. So when their Nishma, which is the Makif, became Naaseh, became Pnim, what would then happen? They then inherit a new Nishma. V'chein midarga ledarga. And this is how Yiddishkeit flows. Experience Baruch Hashem in my own life of seeking and searching and learning and developing and really uncompromisingly searching for the truth and questioning all of the answers and and then questioning them again. And it is like the unfurling of a rose, of a flower, blossoming, step by step, stage by stage. I look back to what my hasagas were when I was, 17, 18, 19, just starting out on this journey. And all of those, they were real, but it wasn't the full context, it wasn't the full picture. And whatever I have now is not the full picture. And it continues to develop, and that's the way that it should be. A person gets a pnim and then a new makif, a Naaseh, and then a new nishma, and a person seeks and they find and they refine and they become broader and they become deeper, and this is the journey. This is how it goes from level to level. Every individual has in relation to them a Naaseh and a Nishma. And in every spiritual world there is a Naaseh and a Nishma. Because everything is relative. So what to the lower world is the Bechina of Nishma, to the higher world is the Bechina of Naaseh. right? Because it's all interlocking. And so everything is depending on where it is. It's blowing very strongly. Do you mind maybe just to turn the... Yeah? A little bit lower. Shkayach. Ki mishu la'olam hazeh b'chinas nishma hu la'olam ha'gagala b'chinas naaseh v'yesh la b'chinas nishma gavoya mimenu. And there's a nishma that's higher. V'chein me'olam la'olam. And this is how it goes from world to world, from level to level, higher and higher and higher. Shkayach Yehuda. V'zeh b'chinas teres Hashem v'teirasai. So the Pasuk says, Ki miseres Hashem yegeh, right? Was the Pasuk, Ki miseres Hashem cheftzai, u'v'seirasai yegeh yoimam v'layla, right? Which is, Ki miseres Hashem cheftzai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah is that person's chefetz, and in his Torah, he's involved and busy yoimam v'layla, day and night, right? So Chazal already point out, there's a distinction between Torah's Hashem, Ki miseres Hashem cheftzai. First it calls it God's Torah, and then it refers to it as Sarasai, his own Torah. Chazal say this is before he learned and after he learned. Before learning, it's outside of his realm. After learning, it becomes your own. Says the Rebbe, this is Naaseh v'Nishma. Mitchila Taras Hashem. Originally, on the level of Nishma, it's Taras Hashem. Shebechinas Nistar. It's hidden from us. It's only Hashem's Torah. But it's from our perspective, it's Tefillah. Hanistaros la Hashem Elokeinu. The hidden aspect is la Hashem Elokeinu. It's Teiras Hashem. When he goes to a higher level, Naaseh Teirasai. Then it becomes integrated down into one's own life. It becomes your own Torah. Naaseh meha Nishma, Naaseh. From the Nishma becomes Naaseh. Shu b'chinas, the end of that pasuk that he quoted earlier, v'hanigles lanu ulvanenu. Our intention wasn't that we should close it all the way, Yuda. Oh, okay, fine. V'hanigles lanu ulvanenu. That the revealed aspect is for us and for our children, right? So meaning to say, all the while that it's in the b'china of Nishma, it's called Taras Hashem. Ki Hanistaros la Hashem Elokeinu, right? That which is hidden is Ta Hashem. And that's Nistar, which is Nishma, and so that's Taras Hashem Cheftzai. But Uvesirasai is when Hanigles Lanu Ulvanenu Ad Olam, right? And that's Hanigles Lanu. What's Nigleh is Naaseh, right? And that becomes his. That's Uvesirasai. So Vizeu Hanistaros La Hashem Elokeinu Zabechinas Nishma. This is the aspect of Nishma. The hidden aspect belongs to Hashem. Hanigles Lanu Ulvanenu Zabechinas Naaseh. But the revealed aspect is for us. That's when we inherit, and that's when we integrate, right? That Torah knowledge from the makif becomes pnim, and then we can refer to it as our own. Ad olam, lasis is called divrei Torah azais. What's ad olam? Sheyelech midarga ledarga. It's eternal. Meaning the aspect of Nistar becoming Nigleh is ad olam. It's forever and ever and ever, right? And that's the continuation of the pasuk. Hanistaros Hashem Elokeinu makif. Right? And this, that the makif becomes pinim, meaning we inherit it, and the nishma becomes Naaseh, and the nistar becomes Nigleh, and the makif becomes pinim, is ad olam. That process is, like we just learned from the Malbim, yelchu michayel el chayel. It never, ever, ever, ever stops. Shouldn't ever stop. Sheyelech mi darga le darga, sheyavo la olam, she'an nishma Naaseh. Where a person comes to a higher level, where that nishma is Naaseh, right? And so that's pshat. He goes deeper. V'zeu la'asois is called divrei haTorah. We want that all the divrei haTorah that were prior in the aspect of Hanistaros la Hashem Elokeinu, ki im b'saras Hashem cheftzai. What do we want should happen to all that Torah? What was all that Torah? It's the b'china of makif, b'china of nishma. What do we want to happen with all that Torah? It should become pnim. It should become... It was Nishma, it should become Naaseh. Says the Rebbe, beautiful. La'asois, as called Divrei Torah Asois. The whole process of Hanistaros Hashem Elokeinu, Makif, Nistar, Nishma, becoming Va'aniglas Lanu Ulvanenu, Pnim, Nigleh, Nishma, is ad olam. It is an eternal process. What's the process? That la'asois, as called divrei haTorah azos. From all of the nishma should become naaseh, la'asois. same word, right? To do. To bring all of the makifim down into pnim. That is the eternal process. Here I was reading this pasuk, it's Pilei Plein. Unbelievable. Hanigleh lanu, Hanistaros Hashem lekenu, Hanigleh lanu ulvanenu ad olam lasos is called Divrei Torah. That's the process of Yiddishkeit. We want to constantly bring down the Nistar into Nigleh, which you understand is a very different way of than ordinarily understanding the pasuk al pi pshat. Because al pi pshat, the pasuk is locking us out of Nistaris, right? And this pasuk is constantly used to say, "Ein lano esek b'Nistaris, Hanistaros Hashem lekenu." Says the Rebbe, no, the Nistaris are only la Hashem lekenu, all the while that you haven't integrated it. But vadai, Hanistaris are for you. What do you mean the Nistaris are for me? The pasuk says, "Hanigleh lanu ulvanenu." Says the Rebbe, yeah. What do you think those Niglehs were before you knew them? Was Nistar, right? Meaning that Nigleh, it's like water and ice, right? What do you think the ice was? It was water first. And before that, it was mist, and it comes down into the world in various forms, right? And that's how a person's spiritual journey is supposed to go. So the Rebbe is giving us permission to access Hanistaros L'Hashem Elokeinu, but the only caveat is that let it be humbly received and truthfully integrated. Humbly received is the bechina of tefillah, because all the while that it's nishma, we need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help us. And then in order for us to be able to access it, it needs to become Nigleh, meaning it needs to become pnim. It needs to become clear. It needs to be onboarded in a way that we can actually integrate it. That's the idea. Says called Divrei HaTorah. So the Rebbe says even more powerfully, what's Divrei HaTorah is not stam speaking about all the makifin, but it's very specific. Divrei HaTorah. This is referring to those diburim of the Torah. It doesn't say Lasis is called mitzvahs HaTorah. What does it say? Lasis is called divrei HaTorah. What are the diburei Torah? Vayadaber Hashem al Ma'ashalemar. Vayadaber divrei HaTorah. Sheim bechinas Nishma Nishma, which are the aspects of Torah that we have no grasp of. Shesvivas hamitzvahs Sheim bechinas Nishma Naaseh mehem bechinas Naaseh. They will become Naaseh. Ad olam. A person will progress and proceed both in time and in space, eternally, infinitely, onward and upward, always. Lasos daika bechinas Naaseh. This mamish means what it says. La'asos, right, to integrate, to make pnim, to make Nigleh, to make Naaseh, as called divrei HaTorah azos, divrei HaTorah, mechinas divrei HaTorah, shesvivas hamitzvah, she mechinas Hanistaros, mechinas Nishma Nigleh, Naaseh mehem mechinas Naaseh, mechinas Nigleh Nigleh. Unbelievable. Right, so the Rebbe is darshaning this pasuk of Hanistaros L'Hashem Elokeinu, Nigleh lanu ulvanenu, to be referring to this process of the simcha that is a result of the two crowns that were placed on the head of each and every Jew, one for Naaseh, one for Nishma. And the Rebbe's understanding, what does Naaseh and Nishma mean? What does it mean, Mechlal, the Klal Yisrael said Naaseh and Nishma? They were referring to the only relevant and effective way of engaging with the Torah, which is the realization that this is going to be a constant journey, and a journey through which Naaseh, a Nishma rather, is becoming Naaseh, and then we get a new Nishma, and becomes a new Naaseh, and it goes on and on and on and on. Yeah.
And just for clarification, so at the beginning of Yud,
yeah,
it says V'yesh b'chol darga v'darga, and then v'chen b'chol oilam v'oilam, and I understand the whole, and then it goes to the Naaseh Nishma, and it shows it through that screen.
Yeah.
Then, is there a difference between the idea of Darga? It must be a difference between the idea of Darga v'Darga and Oilam v'Oilam, or is it the same?
I would say that Darga v'Darga is talking about internally, right? So a person's own felt experience, right, of the layers that they're going. And that could be more microcosmic from the standpoint of Naaseh Nishma filtering through that person. And the Olam v'Olam is ontologically, right? Meaning in the actual nature of reality, there are Olamas, which are set. And below that, Klape, that Olam is Naaseh. And above that, Klape, that Olam is Nishma. And the Olamas don't move, right? So they are where they are. We move, right? We move through them. And so we are constantly integrating darga, v'darga, v'darga, v'darga. What the Rebbe is saying is that spiritually speaking, from the standpoint of the framework, just to get the point across, at any given point, there's a relative below and a relative above. For Klal Yisrael, there's no relative above and there's no relative below, ein mazel Yisrael, because we're constantly moving all the time, right? The human being is a mahalech, not a oimed. The malachim are oimed. The Rebbe is saying it's like stars in the firmament and shooting stars. Like everything is it's like a theory of relativity in a sense, right? Because klape each fixed point, so then there's absolute reality from that point. There's above and below. But klape a point that's moving, there's no fixed reality, right? It's relative. Understand? So that world in and of itself is part of what will be integrated. Meaning klape, the thing that's moving, this fixed point is moving. It's not fixed. It's only fixed from the standpoint of that point in a relative framework. Okay, so one is speaking about our own internal states, and again to clarify, the Rebbe is saying is that we are moving through the olamas. Klapi each olam, there's going to be above and a below, and we're going to move past that, and then all of that which is above klapi a specific olam, as well as below a specific olam, will, from the standpoint of our neshama moving past it all be below. Now, there will not be an above and below, because we will be above, but everything will be below, and then we'll move to the next realm, and the next olam, and so on and so on. Okay? Let's go back inside. We have to move from level to level and from world to world. This has to be our consciousness. To be a Jew is to climb, not to settle. We can never ever settle. It means to be searching, seeking, looking, deepening, more. Mamish Yismach Leiv Mevakshe Hashem. What a Gevalt. I didn't even think of that. Yismach Leiv. What's the whole purpose of what we're talking about now? How to get Simcha. And Simchas Olam al Rosham is a reference to Naaseh and Nishma, right? Yismach Leiv Mevakshe Hashem. That's exactly what the Pasuk is telling us. Because the Bikush is Ein Sof, and now the Rebbe is explaining that Bikush is Naaseh, Nishma to Naaseh, Nishma to Naaseh, Makiv to Pnim, Nistar to Nigleh. That's what it means to be Mevakesh Hashem. Of course, it's going to produce Simcha, because Naaseh and Nishma is V'simchas Olam al Rosham. Yafeh. So this is what we need to do as Yidden, is to search to get to higher and higher dargas of Naaseh and Nishma. She and Naaseh etzlai b'chol pam b'chinas Nishma. All right, Naaseh should always be turning into. I'm sorry, it's confusing. Naaseh etzla b'chol pam b'chinas Nishma, b'chinas Nistar, b'chinas Tefillah, b'chinas Divrei Torah, shesvivus hamitzvos, b'chinas Taras Hashem. Right, for each person, all of these related aspects of Nishma, Nistar, Tefillah, Divrei Torah, shesvivus hamitzvos. Right, not the mitzvos, but the Divrei Torah, b'chinas Taras Hashem. Should constantly be for that Jew transforming into that which is integrated. Naaseh, Nigleh, b'chinas Torah, b'chinas Torah Soi, v'yela b'chinas Nishma, Geulah Yaiser. And then, just like Lint and Torah Chav Aleph, when the Makifim become Pnimim, we immediately inherit a brand new Makif. And this is how we go. Otherwise, we'll stay the same like we were when we were at our upsharing, with our same concepts, our same ideas, and people don't move an inch. People don't move an inch because they don't know that there's anywhere to move. They think that this is it. Nobody taught them that there's more infinitely deeper layers of avodah. And the more a person knows that, all of life becomes this journey of awakening, bit by bit. Yeah.
So can we say that when Am Yisrael said on Har Sinai, Naaseh v'Nishma, it was a declaration of not standing still?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what we're saying. That is exactly what we're saying. We're saying that they understood that if they are about to receive something infinite, you don't receive it statically. You cannot receive the infinite statically because it's infinite. They understood they were being beckoned and invited into an infinite journey. Even the aspect, we can go and this is called Likutei Be'iyun, right? I would just let it be kias because I don't want to go all down into it. But of course, this hasaga will require a radical rereading of the entire episode of Matan Torah. Approached with this frame, I'll just tell one thing. The bechina of the Am standing behind the boundary, and Moshe and Aaron and Hur going up right, on relative levels hierarchically, is itself a frozen echo of Naaseh v'Nishma. Right? Because what's the boundary? The boundary is the limitation of the human capacity relative to each person. That's where a person is. That which is beyond, up the mountain, is the pnim. Is the makif, is the Nistar, is the Nishma. So, the physical orientation of Matan Torah is itself Nishma and Naaseh. Okay, there are many other elements also, but absolutely, without a question, this changes the way that we understand what Klal Yisrael were actually saying when they said Naaseh v'Nishma. Absolutely. Was this. We are ready to journey. We're ready to be a people who are mahalech. This is what it should be. A person is constantly rising, bit by bit, step by step, not rushing. Remember, we learned in Torah Vav, tshuva needs hamten. You have to go slow. It doesn't mean that a person should be galloping now into different... slowly, carefully, bit by bit, step by step. It doesn't mean... But until, steadily, until a person rises to the earliest layer, the most interior kernel of existence, the marrow, so to speak, of all of reality, the innermost essence, which is Tchilas HaTzilus, where a person lives out of that consciousness, which is a realm of unity, a realm of godliness, a realm of goodness. This is all Atzilus. There's no din in Atzilus. There's no separateness in Atzilus. There's nothing but HaKadosh Baruch Hu's godliness, right? And if a person goes step after step, layer after layer in his hasagas in Nistar, and then integrates it into the Nigleh of Kabbalah and Halacha, Razin and Razin de Razin, like we learned, always integrated, right? The Bechina of Yediyah and Bechira, all of the different synthesized integrations of Breslov, of Rebbe Nachman, and of Pnimius HaTorah. Eventually a person comes to the point where they're mamish living, they're not in the same world as everyone else. They're not living in the same world as everyone else. They are living in Atzilus. And they see what no one else sees. That's where they are. They reach the Tchilas HaBriya, a place of no distinction. No distinctions. A place where they see first the Nekuda Pnimis that binds everything together. That's what they see first when they look at anything. A non-dualistic perspective. Straight to the beginning. Visham yesh gam ken bechinas Naaseh v'Nishma. Right? In that place, there's also going to be Naaseh v'Nishma. Can you imagine when a person integrates Atzilus, which is like the lofty, like a person journeyed up to the mamish, to the ceiling of reality, says the Rebbe, there's also a Nishma there. But a bechinas Nishma sheyesh sham hu Taras Hashem be'emes. That Nishma is actually not in relative terms, but for real, right? In a realistic sense, that Naaseh, that Nishma, I'm getting confused, that Nishma is Taras Hashem be'emes. That is actually the Torah of Hashem. Ki b'chol olam v'darga Taras Hashem rak b'shem amushal. Right, every level, this that we refer to what was integrated as Torah Soy, or Naaseh, and that which is beyond as Taras Hashem or Nistar is only relative. Because it's not Mamash Taras Hashem. Klapi, the level that's above that, that's also integrated. That's also Taurasai, right? That's also Naaseh. Says the Rebbe, it's only B'Shem HaMushal that we're referring at each relative point. He's going to get to that rung. What will happen when he gets to that rung? Taras Hashem will become Taurasai Yagayayim HaMalayla. And it goes on and on like this. It's only because in relative terms to where that person is, the next level up is called Taras Hashem. But when he gets there, it will become integrated. Says the Rebbe, it is possible for a person to get to a level where they are so connected and accessing the point at the Tchilas Hatzilas that there's literally nothing higher than it, and if there's nothing higher than it, then that which is beyond is the true Teiras Hashem. It is the Teiras Hashem. Rak Teiras Hashem mamish. V'achar kach yishenichlo be'ein sof. And then when a person climbs one level higher and is mevatel themselves legamri, that they don't exist, totally transcending themselves, their ego, and becoming absolutely melted into the infinity of Hashem. As I Naaseh, Naaseh hi bechinas Teiras Hashem mamish, v'Nishma bechinas tefillas Hashem. Then it's both. That Naaseh remains Teiras Hashem, not Teirasai. And that Nishma in that place is Tefillas Hashem. Torah and Tefillah are absolutely unified in that place, because in that place we can no longer refer to Nistar and Nigleh, Torah and Tefillah, relative to that soul spark. Because again, remember, it's very abstract, but hopefully we're with us, I hope. Right? Torah and Tefillah were always relative to the point of a particular neshama along the spectrum. So wherever that point was, below it is Torah, beyond it is Tefillah. When that point melts into the infinite, there is no longer a point. So there's no longer a frame of reference, right, to be able to measure what's beyond and what's below. It's something similar to the letter Aleph in Torah Vav, where you have the Nekud Al Yaina, the Nekud Tachtayna, but in order to know what's the Nekud Al Yaina and Nekud Tachtayna, you need a Vav in the middle, right? And then we said even there, really every Nekud Al Yaina is the Nekud Tachtayna of the next Vav and. So be'emes, there is no Vav. The Vav is our consciousness, so we experience reality from wherever we are along the spectrum. But be'emes, it's just infinite godliness. If it's just infinite godliness, then it's all homogeneous, you understand? Because that, I'm finding it very hard to say this, because if you take out the frame of reference, which essentially splits homogeneous reality, boom, into two aspects, then it's split, right? And then you have makif and pnim, right? Because you have that nekuda apnimis, which the Rebbe is going to say later on, is what's called the chalal hapanoi. It's very deep. Chalal hapanoi, says the Rebbe, what's the chalal hapanoi? What does that mean, the vacant space within which God creates the world? Says the Rebbe, everything's God. Because we say, Mimala kol almin v'soibiv kol almin. Hashem surrounds all the worlds. Or rather, Mimala is he fills all of reality, and he surrounds all of reality. Says the Rebbe, if he fills and surrounds, so then he just is. So what's reality? Right? If he fills all of reality and he surrounds all of it, so where is reality? Says the Rebbe, Chalal hapanoi. Chalal hapanoi is our consciousness. Right? What's Chalal hapanoi means? That we experience godliness out of our own consciousness as being something other than God. Be'emes, all of reality is godliness. Be'emes, what's beyond godliness is this worldliness is godliness. But the I, the sense of self, the consciousness, is that chalal hapanoi, which is then capable of distinguishing between an above and below. Torah Vav, a nekud al yaina and a nekud tachtayna. Torah Chof Aleph, a makif and a pnim. Torah Chof Beis, a tefillah and a Torah. If you take out that point, the memale and the soibev collapse into one another. It emerges that there was never any distinction, and memela, there's Torah and tefillah as one. There's no chilik between them. They are totally identified one with the other. There's no difference, because the infinite is totally homogeneous. The only reason that we should have the perception of the infinite not being homogeneous is because our point of consciousness exists, which automatically brings into reality a relative framework, but there really is no relative framework. Is this clear? Is there any questions? Yeah, is that clear? It's a very delicate idea.
Parallel to that, the Aleph in Torah Vav, the Yud on top and the Yud on the bottom are the same.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when is that reality brought into being, right? When a person rises from the Nekuda Yaina to the next Nekuda Tachtoina.
Right.
Which means when a person rises from having attained the Makif, which now becomes Panim, they get a new Makif, they go to the next one. But meaning to say, if in the context of Torah Vav we learned that Nekuda Yaina and Nekuda Tachtoina are synonymous, that's basically telling us, right, that really be'emes, it's all one. Right? That every Makif, and because it's all relative. So when a person gets into that realm of the infinite, where there's no longer that point that's distinguishing between what's above and below, then there is no above and there is no below. It's an ocean of everything.
There's always a new above and new below.
No, not on that level. On that level, the I, which is the only thing that distinguishes, yes.
But that's the Torah above it.
That's what the Rebbe says.
So
Let's read it inside.
There's something above it, you said before.
Huh?
When you reach the top of the mountain, Shamata, there's also something above that. It's a relative, something which is fixed, but that fixed becomes
But
dynamic.
again, it's only relative klape the I. So all the while that an I exists, Yelchem Michael Chayil. The Rebbe here is speaking about, I don't know how to do this, but the Rebbe is speaking about getting to a level where there is no longer an I. Listen, I hear what you're saying, listen. If you get to that level, there is no longer any makif. Because you are one with it. You don't exist. So you cannot say there's anything beyond. Because there's no you. You understand? So these two things are not a stira. From the standpoint of an individual's journey, it's endless. Says the Rebbe, there's a way of getting to a place where that sense of self melts away, and the sense of self itself is seen as being, the Chal HaPanei itself is seen as being full. The realm of Bechira is itself seen as being saturated with Yediyah. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're saying. So,
Because the I no longer exists.
Bidyu.
So there is nothing.
There you go. But now, all the while there is an I, Vadai, endless Makif Panim. The Rebbe says you can get to a place where you're gone, right? You're no longer. Let's read it back inside. Says the Rebbe, Ach bechinas hanishma shebechinas hatzilus hitaras Hashem be'emes ki ein gevaya misham rak taras Hashem mamish. Ve'achar kach kishenichlol be'ein sof, when a person's whole sense of identity and self is totally obliterated and annihilated into the infinite, azai Naaseh hi bechinas taras Hashem mamish ve'anishma hi bechinas tefillas Hashem. It's all godliness. It's all homogeneous. It's one. Ki yesh Taras Hashem, says there. We'll go a little bit weiter. The Rebbe says there is Taras Hashem. There's an aspect called Taras Hashem. Come on, Amar Rabbi Seinus Chana L'Bracha, like the Gemara says in Yerushalmi, Aniki Am Tia Tchila, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mekayim the Torah before anybody else. The Gemara in Sight that tells us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Malbish Arumim, U'Vakar Chaylam, Hashem does all the mitzvahs, He keeps the Torah. V'chein Amar Rabbi Seinus Chana L'Bracha, famously in the Gemara in Brachas, Minan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Meniach Tefillin, right? Hashem wears Tefillin, Kiviyachol, V'chein Yesh Tefillas Hashem. So that's the Torah Hashem. Hashem keeps His Torah. But then there's also Tefillas Hashem. How do we know that a Kadosh Baruch Hu also davens? Right? Wild thing. Beis tefilasi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to it as my prayer house. Right? What does it mean, my prayer? So Chazal darshan, because it's the place where God prays. Kiviyachol. Nimtza sheyesh taras Hashem v'yesh tfilas Hashem. There is something called Hashem's Torah, and there is something called Hashem's Tefillah. Utfilasa hi tfilas Hashem mamish v'zeh she'amar Rabbi Seinus Chana L'Bracha hamavakesh rachamim al chaveiroi v'utzarech la'oseh davar hu nena tchila. This is the deeper meaning of what the Gemara says in Baba Kama, a person who asks for our divine mercy on behalf of their friend, and hu tzarech la'oseh davar, and he also has that same need, hu nena tchila. The person who davens for their friend will get it first. Says the Rebbe, I don't understand. If that person needs the thing, but he doesn't daven for himself, why isn't he davening for himself? He also needs it. Why doesn't he daven for himself? Why is he davening for someone else? He needs the same thing. So if it's something worth davening for, so daven for your own needs. Says the Rebbe, must be if this person is davening for someone else. Must be this person is they don't have any self-consideration. Their whole orientation is outward, not inward. They're always looking to give, not to take. They don't exist. And so it doesn't even arise in their mind to daven for their own need, even though they need the same thing that someone else needs. But when someone else needs it, that's what they perceive to be a need. When they need it, they don't exist. Right? That we're talking that it's tzaddik on an extraordinarily high level. V'hu b'chinas tchila. Says the Rebbe, where did this person get this midah from? Ayin? Says the Rebbe, it's because they're connected to that realm of tchila. Tchila sa'atzilas. Ein sof that comes before the olam of atzilas, which then comes down into Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah. Hu b'chinas tchila. Hainu koydem abriya. That person is rooted before creation exists.
So Unan Tchila
that's what we're getting. Umachma shuhu b'chinas tchila al yedei zeh hunana tchila. Therefore, he is answered first. Because kalam espalal ba'ad chaver v'hu tzarech la'asadavar means that person is in the realm of ayin. Memela hunana. Memela, that person, that's what it means in a very deep sense, is so plugged into the source of Shefa that he will get answered. He will be taken care of. You know why? Not tchila means he'll get answered first, but the reason we're batuach that such a person will get answered, who's literally in the realm of the ayin, is because tchila, is because he is connected to that realm of the tchila. Hunana tchila. Okay, Blineder, we'll jump back in tomorrow from the brackets of L'chaira. And just a small comment also before we end. Be'ezras Hashem, it's not totally, completely, entirely finalized yet, but we're moving toward finalizing stages. Myself and Rav David Weinberg, Be'ezras Hashem, is a very, very dear friend of mine and fellow author and mashpia, very, very special yid, who I'd like to believe I'm similar to in some ways. He plays music also. He's an amazing yid. Are going to be joining together to run a guided and supported Uman experience this year in Uman for Rosh HaShana, B'siyata D'Shmaya, which will mean shiurim throughout, kumzitzin, fabringins, all the sudas together, staying all together, and it's something that we should think about. I know for those who have not done this before and whose families don't understand this inyan, it is a major step. It's a major step. But in Breslov, it's one of the ultimate pillars. And I personally can't think of anything more special than spending Rosh Hashanah there with our Rebbe, that we've been learning from for months and months and has had such a major impact in so many of our lives. I think it's a really remarkable opportunity. If there are any personal considerations somebody wants to speak about from the standpoint of family and how you do this, keep in mind you're not the first one to have those questions, to have those challenges. Almost everybody in Uman has those challenges, and it can be talked through and it can be worked through, and sometimes it can't be, and that's also okay. Sometimes it's mamish efshar. But I know from the outset, especially if you haven't been before and you've never considered going before, it can sound very radical and difficult and impossible almost. All I'm saying is, don't reactively say efshar. It may be and should be something that we think of. And this is going to be open to everybody, obviously not just our Chabura, but anybody who listens to the shiurim and the recordings and beyond. And what I think it will accomplish is a very niche space, which has been lacking in Uman for a while, which is a real avodah-oriented Uman experience, which is healthy, normal, balanced, Torah-grounded, and guided and focused, so that we don't get distracted and we don't and it's not too overwhelming and noisy and strange and not chutz migeder of what our chevra are trying to accomplish, which is one thing and one thing only, is to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a really beautiful way, obviously with singing and with dancing and with like-minded American chevra from all around the world. I say American, I mean Anglo-English speaking, Chevra from all around the world. I think it's going to be something very remarkable and special. So stay tuned. We're going to be posting the information later today, and it would be a real privilege if you could join us. Okay.
אני הבן ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני